Hello everyone, and welcome back to Aethelburg, our European series here in Cities Skylines 2. Back in episodes 1 and 2, I got a ton of feedback about how to give Aethelburg a stronger sense of history, and one of the most requested ideas was to build an old medieval wall around an historic town center. So today, with the help of some fantastic mods, we're going medieval and creating a walled fortress town out on this peninsula, the heart of a brand new satellite city that will eventually grow into Aethelburg. We'll start with the castle and the church, surround it with walls, then cram in the town itself and cover essential services before detailing things up. And then of course, we'll end with some community feedback from last episode's train yard. I've also got a special announcement. We now have a Discord. If you want to hang out, give feedback, or just talk city planning, the invite link is in the video description. There's even a channel called City Suggestions where you can submit ideas, and if enough people like them, they'll get moved to another channel where I can more easily see them, and then I can decide whether to add them to the city. And a huge thank you to Trim, a community member who helped set up the server, created all the roles in the channels, and really did something wonderful with it. So go join, give Trim a wave, and start sharing your ideas. But with all that out of the way, let's begin. I'm no military strategist, but I knew the moment I loaded this map that we had to do something like King's Landing or a walled fortress town right here on this peninsula, because it offers such great protection of the inner bay here and Aethelburg's nascent fishing industry. It's got great clearance where you can just lob cannonballs at marauding pirates, and easy to defend itself since it's on a peninsula and you can only access it from one direction. But now this is possible thanks to Fragonaut's medieval asset pack. If we go to landscaping and then parks, it's all these assets right here. So we got bastions, gates, bridges, towers, walls, and this is actually what we used last episode to build our train bridge right over here. And this is with a single component from the pack. So I am super excited to see what we can do with the pack in its entirety. Now, being the American I am, I definitely wanted to do some research before tackling a project like this since, we don't have medieval walled towns in America. But that research led me to Carcassonne in France, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it is incredible. The first thing you'll notice is it has not one but two walls surrounding the city. I guess for better defense, that's a killing field in between the walls. And then it has a fort here, a church, an amphitheater of all things. But this is what I want to take inspiration from for our peninsula. So here is what I'm thinking. We'll have the castle kind of defending the water there on this bit right here. The church facing west, of course. I'm going to try to do an amphitheater as well. I think that'd be kind of cool. And then the town itself inside the first wall. Then we'll have some kind of clearing here. And then a tier below that, we will have the outer wall before getting a road traveling all the way down the coast to link up with Aethelburg itself. So let's begin by buying up our tile, and luckily this tile encompasses the entire peninsula, so we should only have to buy one, and our budget is doing fine anyway, so should be good all there. But the two most important buildings I want to get down first are the keep and the church. For the keep, I'm going to use this medieval castle asset, but not the real one, because it's $4.8 million and we don't even have $1 million in the bank, so let's stick with the static ploppable. It's kind of weird though, even this static ploppable raises the terrain, which I've never seen before, so we're gonna have to work around that. I'm thinking though, let's get it in this corner right here. Good visibility into the water where we can just lob cannonballs day and night. But let's plop this down around here. At the top of the hill, of course. And yeah, it's doing whatever that is. So let's lower this just a smidge. We don't really need this ramp, I think, because we're gonna do a custom gate out front. But if we lower that, that should make this, whatever that is, go away a little more. We'll do some surfaces in there, but still have to do a little bit of terrain work, looks like. And maybe this is okay that we're kind of flattening this part because we're gonna need a pad of land for the outer wall itself. Okay, keep down, and obviously this is like the last line of defense. It's where the Lord and Lady live, so good thing that it's at the very back and at the highest point. Next to it though is where I want to get down the church, and here is where Fragonaut's brilliance is really going to shine, because not only do they have a medieval asset pack, they have a church pack. And if we go to landscaping, parks, scroll down, the pièce de résistance is the St. Stephen's Cathedral, which is all custom, all incredible. This is every bit as majestic as the Notre Dame, I think, but I think it's a little too big for our little town here. It would be a better fit eventually in some kind of downtown plaza over there. However, they have a smaller church. This guy right here, which is just perfect. So I'm thinking, let's get this next to the keep over here, and of course, facing west. I'm creating a bit more room in between it and the keep itself, just so we can do a nice plaza out front. But okay, two most important buildings down, and these are the ones that I kind of wanted to make sure really fit in the area. So from here, let's do the inner wall. And I'm thinking, let's have this part of the keep kind of be attached to the inner wall. So we'll come off around here, loop around the church, and then we'll bring it down to, I don't know, maybe at the thin point, or maybe a little past the thin point of the peninsula there. And then below that, like a tier below that, we're going to get the outer wall. So let's go to landscaping, parks again, and we're going to use this. This F map is Fragonaut's Medieval Asset Pack, I believe. But the difference between the wall and the plain wall is that this has some nice decorative stonework on the bottom. So we're going to stick with this. I'm going to go to line tool, 8 meters, 90 degrees. And then from here, you should be able to get a nice clean connection. Yes. Okay, let's surround these assets now. Ooh, okay, that was kind of a pain, but a good start. Although they would not have just the wall here. Obviously, they would have towers and, of course, gates. And I was reading up on how old cities used to do like double-walled configurations with their gates. And to make sure that enemies didn't have just a straight shot into the town, they would have the inner gate facing one direction and the outer gate somewhere else facing a different direction, just to make the enemies have to twist and turn within no man's land here. And that's what we're going to do. So for the inner gate, let's have it in this corner right here. And we're going to go to, I think Gatehouse A is the one I was looking at. Yeah, this thing's pretty imposing. I guess we can get rid of these. And that's a good fit too. Nice, okay. And I like how there's like a cement block underneath these walls in case the terrain dips a little bit, but we can do a little better. Before we mess with the terrain though, we have to do some instructions from Fragonaut to make sure that sub-elements don't disappear. And so remember how, or I don't know if you saw last episode, but remember how some of the archways were disappearing in our bridge? We can do something called Anarchy Transform Lock. If you go to Better Bulldozer, click this icon right here, select main elements, sub-elements, and then Anarchy Transform Lock, and basically just select all your components here. You see how that was just highlighted? If we do that for all this and the church, if we mess with the terrain after this, they won't disappear. And I guess I'm doing it for those trees as well. Oh well. And now as a they went away for a second. Now as a demonstration, let's just like smooth out some of this land. And yeah, you can see it kind of shimmied or shimmered there a little bit, but now everything is staying in place. And that is one steep drop off. No one is climbing that. Okay, so that's the inner gate. Let's do some towers on each of these corners now. And I'm gonna stick with this tower high 3 just so it really sticks up above the wall and is nice and imposing. And right by the gate, let's get some taller ones. How about with a nice little roof effect? I mean, already that's looking 10 times better with just the visual variation here. But for the keep, I'm going to use this bigger tower right here, literally called Tower Big, for some of these turrets right here, just to A, hide it, and B, want to make sure that our keep and the Lord and Lady feel nice and protected. There you go, no one is getting into there, so that should be good for the inner wall. Let's do the outer wall now, and I'm going to go to our level terrain tool. We're not level, but let's just get kind of a flatter pad of land a little bit below the inner wall here, so we have some like nice Minas Tirith effect. If this is at, or I guess they're all over the place in terms of elevation, but let's try to go like 5 meters below it. Okay, come at us, pirates. So I left a little space open right here for a bastion, and then we'll do the outer gate, maybe that corner right there. The bastion, I'm going to use this small bastion A, which has walls going off at an angle, so it kind of fits this area right here. But this would be perfect for just gazing out over the water. They're raising the alarm if they see pirates coming, and then we can just connect the walls with a single unit. Nice, we could have like an army barracks on that side, I guess, or maybe like a bridge connecting the outer wall to the inner wall. But over here, let's get the outer gate, and we'll do the same one, this gatehouse A. And finally, some more towers on all the corners here. Actually, on the outside here, let's do another big tower. Where'd you go? Tower big, I mean, to kind of hide the wonkiness there. But also, I feel like, you know, this is close to the outer gate. They probably want to make this spot as defensible as possible, since that's like the first point of attack, probably. And I talk like I know anything about military strategy again. I do not. Except Age of Mythology, back in the early 2000s. And Halo Wars. I'm basically MacArthur. And voila, the outer wall is complete. I gotta decolorify all these before I forget. So again, Anarchy, that tool, make sure all these are selected, and then we'll just highlight all of our wall elements. Now, I mentioned a bridge or two just to make it easy for defenders to pass back and forth between the walls. So let's go back to our assets, and we have some bridge assets here. So let's try this one. Maybe we're here where the wall's a little thinner. Can connect the wall to that tower there. Lower it down a little bit. And we'll definitely have to do some terrain work over there. But I think we should have a bridge connecting this part of the wall to the lookout bastion over there. And what happened here? Well, we can do some terrain work to smooth that out, but yeah, then we'll get some kind of bridge. Let's connect these two towers here, perhaps. And if we pretend really hard, we can say that that is a staircase, not just a straight slab there. So I think we are all good on the walls now. So we got our defenses down, now we can finally build safely within the walls. Now here's the thing, in the course of history, obviously the buildings would come first in a medieval town like this, and then the roads, which were just the paths that people took from A to B. But if you played the game, you know that the game really wants you to build the roads first for utilities, basically. So let's do a basic, if not chaotic, road network inside here, and then we'll connect it up to the King's Road, which is the road that would, lead to the front gate here. We'll connect it up to Aethelburg there, so we can get some water, sewage, and electricity flowing. For this, I'm going to stick with a gravel road for now because it's cheaper, and inside we're going to cover it with a nice cobblestone surface anyway. But I'll do a constant sloping grounding on as we kind of come out the gate here in this challenging terrain. And fun fact, this is actually the second go-around for this build for me because in the initial build, for whatever reason, I flattened the entire hilltop here, and that was just a really boring choice. So here we are again. Okay, it's boring and ugly, but that should get the utilities flowing. However, I think we're going to need a little bit more water. Yeah, let's do it. And I'm thinking, let's do the Eastern European water tower because we can kind of hide it in one of these turrets maybe. And we can say it's special, like a special red paint because we, as, you know, barbarians, bathe in the blood of our attackers. Or something like that. I don't know. Here, this wall's a little blank. Let's do it right in the middle. It's the red keep all over again. So now we can do our road network. Let's go back to gravel road and straight segments this time. I'm gonna learn my lessons from the first couple episodes. And yeah, let's get crazy with it. Left a little bit of room for a small town square up here, but I feel like this is going to be the focal point. So let's make this a roundabout. We'll do a small one. That can be like where the town crier is and all that, but let's also connect up our water tower before I forget. And so we got water down, sewage should be flowing through the road here, as should electricity, and pretty sure, yep, everything's set up, although electricity, we're going to need some more juice pretty soon, but I think that is a start to the utilities and the roads, which means we are finally ready to start putting in some buildings here. Now, I was reading a little bit about medieval town layouts, and to the extent that they had, you know, zoning organization, what I saw was that they kind of relegated the outside of the town here, in between the road and the wall, to kind of the, I don't want to say lower class people, but definitely the lower income brackets, so craftsmen, blacksmith, occupations like that, not for merchants or royalty. So what I'm thinking is in between Cornflower Lane and the wall, we'll do some single family houses and row houses, but really pack them in. Because again, like in Carcassonne, all these buildings are just gonna be on top of each other. From there, we're gonna do some medium density stuff and commercial activity around the town roundabout there. And then same for as we move up the hill towards the keep and the church plaza, more medium density stuff, higher level stuff, and some mixed use. And then I'm gonna do a mixture of static ploppables and functional assets. Functional where the ground is a little flatter because it's going to stamp the ground flat anyway, or if I really want to see a company move in so we can have some more activity. But for the rest, we'll splice together static ploppables and then go through later and add some modular zoning blocks just so they have activity as well. But that is the plan. So with that, let's build this town. I know this is rich of me to say since I'm the one who built it, but super happy with how this turned out. I feel like I learned my lesson from the original alt stat, where everything is still, I think, a little too spaced out. Now, it's 10 times better than it was before, and we will upzone all these suburb-looking things. But over here, I mean, they really filled in all the nooks and crannies. With the exception of the buildings in between, or the space in between these buildings and the wall, I feel like that would be a risk if like the building collapses, then the wall is compromised. So looking at Carcassonne, I see some trees in between the buildings and the wall too. So we'll get some trees to fill that space in. However, I left this block open because I almost forgot the two most important buildings outside the keep and the church, and that is the pub and the inn, of course. And I think we can use some commercial signature buildings for those. Now, we've already used the Heath pub and the church inn over in Aethelburg, but I mean, how can we not? Oh, look at that, milestone 8, sweet, a nice infusion of cash. And I think high density, sweet. Residential, that is. Mermaid's Tea Lounge. Ooh, this would be great if it weren't so big, but as I was saying, let's get the Heath pub in this corner here, close to the church, and then the church inn right next to it. And I'm doing the smaller varieties since they don't have parking. Sweet, and now let's fill in the rest of the block here. Okay, so much better, but let's do a quick tour. So left this space open because I feel like this would be like the mustering field for soldiers as they're about to march out. And they probably wouldn't want buildings so close to the gate here. So left this space open for a little plaza or a little park. Maybe these buildings are a little too close, but whatever. This can be like trees and stuff. I left this space open for the aforementioned amphitheater, and obviously we'll detail up the plaza there. And then again, left this space open for some trees and so we don't compromise the wall. And with that, most of the zoning is complete. However, let's get some modular zoning blocks inside some of the static poppables since I didn't use functional buildings for all the spaces here because the pathfinding would have been mad. It would have messed up the terrain. And when you splice in buildings at crazy angles, yeah, the game no like. So let's get some mixed office and mixed residential around here. Okay, clearly we got some activity going on here, which means people should start moving in soon, and that means we need a district with some services. I'm gonna surround the entire peninsula as a single district, and as a placeholder name, I'm gonna start with Queen's Landing, since I mentioned King's Landing as the inspiration here, and we have Queen Aethelfled in our city's lore, but I kind of imagine this as the start of a new city. One of the main pieces of feedback I got from episode 1 was that I should not do a single city core that just expands forever. Instead, I should have multiple towns that kind of grow into each other, and that's half the idea here. So with that being said, this city can kind of have its own lore, so if y'all have any name suggestions, definitely let me know in the comments. And no heavy traffic. I want to discourage as many cars as possible. Now, for services, the first one we got to think about always is death care. And looking at Carcassonne, they have their graveyard on the outside of the city wall, which makes a lot of sense because you don't want dead bodies around where you live. That's like a one-way ticket to a bubonic plague outbreak. So let's do something similar. Let's get a road going off here before the outer gate, and we'll do a UK parish church right around here. Of course, facing west. And actually, before I do that, I do want to check one thing. I want to see where the wind is blowing because I also don't want... Okay, yeah, good. I didn't want the wind to blow the smell of dead bodies into the town. So at least, yeah, it's just going to blow it towards Aethelburg, and we can say they are rival cities, so they don't care about Aethelburg. And make sure we assign this. And you know what? Let's kind of give Aethelburg a helping hand since they got some problems. Oh, you saw that traffic symbol? People are coming. Sweet. All right, the other services we need to think about are, of course, healthcare, fire, and police. So let's do some modular service blocks for that. Starting with healthcare, let's get a block. How about by the church somewhere? Now for these, we can upgrade them with more ambulances, but obviously I don't want these inside the city walls. Let's have like a utility parking lot over by the cemetery, I think. And then we'll have some like tourist parking lots over here. Oh, sweet, look at all those taxis. They're coming. And then we'll assign this district, and we'll do the same for police and fire. And then of course we need education, so let's do a service block inside the church here. So it's like a religious school. We'll get this right there. And then I'm gonna upgrade this with, where'd it go? Can I not select it? Crap. All right, temporarily moving the church. There you are. I'm gonna upgrade this with both elementary school faculty or facility and a high school. We'll select this district. And let's move back the church. And that should about cover it for services. However, let's think about public transportation next. I'm not going to do a tram line inside Queen's Landing just yet, although we totally could. We learned that we can do that over, in tight alleyways with the alt stat. But I think it's a little too soon to get a tram depot over here. Instead, I'm thinking about ferry service in between Queen's Landing and the Aethelburg port right over there. And we can do this thanks to the More Water Transportation mod by Washi776. So what I'm thinking is we'll get the boat depot and ferry pier over here, since it's somewhat protected by this peninsula right there. And then we're gonna repurpose one of these piers for a ferry pier, and that'll be the service on this side of the bay. But as the city expands, hopefully we'll see some activity going back and forth here. So let's begin by unlocking water transportation. Go to our water tab, and first things first, let's put down the boat depot. You may notice we can't do a boat line until we build a harbor. So unfortunately, this is gonna cost us $420,000, but I will delete it and get some type of refund. I think it'll be worth it though. And look at all those taxis, wow. Boat depot on that side, and then breakwater ferry pier is the one I want over here. And this, alongside that peninsula, will kind of help protect this area if we ever do like a marina or something like that. And obviously we need to connect this to the main road now. We'll do a nice 2-lane road with parking. It's gonna be nicer than the King's Road itself. Okay, all utilities are made. We'll spruce up this area in a second, but let's go over here and get down the ferry pier. I'm gonna get rid of this one that's always kind of annoyed me since it's at an angle. And then I think we can get rid of this connection here, and we'll just go straight out with this ferry pier. And looks a little jank. Maybe we can bring it up a little bit with Move It. Nice, that's just the security fence, I guess. Okay, next step, we unfortunately have to drop 100 or 420K on this harbor. So let's just plop it and then get our refund. 105 is more than I thought it would be, so we're doing okay with money at least. Now we're gonna go to get a very small seaway and connect the two piers. Let's do this side so it's not bumping up against the rocks there. And then last, we'll make our boat line. And hopefully that'll alleviate all the traffic on the King's Road. And yep, a boat is already coming. Love it. Now, I like to think that Queen's Landing is kind of in tourist competition with Aethelburg, so let's make the drop off here a little more welcoming. For commuters, we should probably have a little bit of parking, so let's get a small gravel parking lot right across from the ferry itself. And then in this corner, I want to do the Church Inn and Restaurant, which is kind of the grandparent of the Church Inn that we have up in Queen's Landing itself. But this one has some parking and more outdoor seating. So let's get this right over there and kind of shift it with Move It so it's not on the sidewalk. And we should have room for a little pocket park right there, I think. And yes, we need to get parks up in the city itself. And that surface is 10 times better than the pavement, so let's get rid of this and spread this one out. No, I don't like that either. Let's get a more rugged looking surface. In fact, I have some, yeah, natural stone. This one with the grass and the moss in between, this looks like it could be there for 100 years so, or 100 years. That's the American speaking to me. 1,000 years, there we go. Let's get this all over the parking lot in the park. Yeah, that looks a lot cooler, I think. So a little bit of cleanup. And then next, I want to get a pier all along the roadside here. A tourist pier, that is. So let's go to our pathways, and I'm going to do the medium wooden leisure pier all over here. And if the colors weren't blinding me right now, I think that would look good. Not a fan of this pavement though. Let's get some more cobblestone. And is that a person coming to use the ferry? Where are you going? Moving away? No, don't say that. All right, is anybody on the boat? Nope, not yet. All right, it's early days and it's rush hour, so hopefully this is used. But we got the main road with trees on it going to the King's Road. However, I want to get like a not so secret passageway up to maybe like this stretch of wall right here, thinking it was like, you know, back in the day, a secret entrance for the Lord and Lady, or a secret escape if things were going south. So let's get just a dirt pathway coming up here, and then we'll do like a doorway inside the wall here. And we can say that like now it's a tourist destination, so it's a little more obvious. Let's go to our pathways. We'll start with a pavement path so we can do constant slope and grounding, but then we can cover it with some dirt. Oh, what'd I do? From here, we're probably gonna have to do some switchbacks. So let's go to our slope terrain tool and make this a little more gentle. For the gate itself, let's go back to Fragonaut's pack. And I think we have a smaller gate. Yeah, Gatehouse B. Sweet, and now let's get like a doorway prop right in the center there. One of these pergolas, which upon closer inspection does not pass as a doorway, just like in the wall, but that's okay. Excellent. Speak friend and enter. And wouldn't you know it, right as I'm about to cover up this sidewalk with some dirt, we lose electricity. So let's go upgrade our wind turbines. Oh great, we're also missing trains and garbage capacity, so we're killing it, y'all. Let's just get some solar panels on these three. And that should hold us over for the time being. How we doing? People are happy and people have electricity. Sweet, okay. Back to the path. I'm going to use Algendo 87's dirt net lanes. So let's go to details, net lanes, and it's all of these. Let's stick with dirt path 2 wide for now, and then try to cover this up. Oh, sweet. Look at all the people. Nice. Okay. Glad to see that. And that looks 10 times better, I think, having a dirt path down the mountainside instead of just like a straight, clean-cut sidewalk. Now, I'm not going to do a path on this side of the wall because then you're showing the enemy exactly where the path goes to the secret entrance in the keep. So I think we can say that at this point, it goes underground to some secret entrance in the keep that is, again, now a tourist attraction. So with all that done, I think we're ready to move on. And we got the afternoon ferry bringing in a whole bunch of people. I'm so happy that this thing's being used, even if people are floating in midair, I guess. We can look past that, but I wonder what this looks like when people get off. Whoa, okay, that's a lot of people. I guess the question is, are they actually going to Queen's Landing, which from this angle just looks badass, or are they just going to the signature building here? Going shopping at the pharmacy, which is right in the heart of Old Town. That's perfect. Okay, I was a little afraid that this would be just a barren wasteland of taxis, but I guess this is just the people moving in right now. So later we'll get some cobblestone surfaces to cover the roads here. We'll replace them with pedestrian streets, so we actually have people walking down the middle, just not the sides here. And then obviously we'll get a bunch of parks, some green space, and a bunch of restaurant props, for the corners. But before all that, before we detail, there are two more things I want to do. One is finally build this amphitheater here in the vein of Carcassonne, this amphitheater that's right next to the cathedral. It's kind of like lowered into the ground and up against the wall, so we can do something similar with the wall right there. And then I'm going to get a little bit of farmland to help with our crop production and to give all these peasants a job. Now for this amphitheater, there's a mod by Mr. Cruder called Ancient Set. And if you go to Landscaping and Parks, scroll past Fragonaut, it's all these assets right here. And this is what City Planner Plays used to build a Colosseum in his new Rome stream. And I think we can do something similar with this small set of seats right here. Now, you can see, like, I kind of want to line it up with the road there, so it's perpendicular to the town square, but I did not place the wall in a way conducive to that. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to get 4 of these in a row, and then I'm going to switch up where the wall is, so it's kind of serving as the backdrop to the stage here, because we'll have seats at the top, obviously, and then the stage will be at the bottom. It's not going to be like a majestic Colosseum where gladiators fight, but I'm thinking maybe this could be like Shakespeare in the Park. This is where they play. So let's just bring back this wall. This is why we have 2 walls, so we can do renovation on the inner wall and still be protected. I'm also going to lower the ground now. And let's plop down these seats. Might have to overlap, otherwise we're going to be too close to the outer wall there. Okay, that's actually perfect that the road is on top of that, but now we can bring back the towers and these corners here, and then the wall will be the backdrop to the stage at the lowest level there. That was scary. All right, this is looking pretty good. Let's raise up the seats just a little bit. Oh no, okay, never mind. Let's lower that ground just a little bit. I think I can live with a little bit of imperfection, but we'll get some kind of cobblestone surface as the stage itself. And on the perimeter here, I want to get some of these columns. Where are you at? Some of these open air columns right here, because if we do a line of these, it's like there used to be a roof, but it's so old that the roof collapsed and only the columns remain. And then we can get some dumpster fires inside the column so it looks like they're lit. So let's get a few of these all along the outside. And maybe we should just have like one. Oh, how can we not? Let's do it. And by dumpster fire, I literally mean a dumpster fire. If we couldn't find it, and just search for fire. These barrel fires, not dumpster fire, barrel fires. But once you place these, there's actually like a flame effect that goes on. Just like that. Just like old, the Roman Senate or something like that, except they're gonna watch Wicked or Rent or something in here. Okay, very cool. Last thing, let's get a surface right down here. That I can live with. Okay, so that is the amphitheater. Even if it looks a little uneven, we can play with it, as always, when we do a little more detailing, and I can't let this go. I can let it go, and I will let it go. We'll detail that up a little bit more, but now let's do some farmland. So I guess I lied at the top of the episode when I said I was only going to buy this one tile, because now we're going to buy a few more for these farms. I think these 3 ought to do. And that kind of took a chunk out of our budget, but hopefully the tax revenue from these farms will help make up for it. So let's check our natural resources. And we only have fertile land right here, which is a little surprising. So let's get a grain farm in this chunk. And then we got a bunch of trees. So let's prioritize timber, since I believe we have a pretty hefty deficit, 10 tons per month. So we could definitely use some timber. And then actually we'll do some livestock as well on the non-fertile land. So I don't want to do anything too crazy with this road layout because it's just farms. So let's just kind of break up these chunks and follow the tree lines. And honestly, that's probably good enough for now, but we definitely need a few roundabouts, I think. Let's get them on all the major junctions. This one could probably do a bigger roundabout. And that looks like hot garbage. We should probably pave that road just so the surface doesn't abruptly change. But how about a few more? And one thing I really love seeing in like European countrysides is little villages just pop up out of the blue on all these country roads. So let's choose a spot, maybe like by this roundabout right here, for a couple of shops and single-family houses. Turn off colors, and we can use the good old-fashioned vanilla zoning tool, I think, for this one. Please do not be a gas station. I think I lied, the vanilla zoning tools are just all over the place here, so we might have to break up these chunks of blocks and shift them a little closer to the road, but we'll let those zone in, maybe one more. But finally, let's get some farms. I think we got room for a few more single-family houses on this road right here. Nothing too huge. And I don't want them too close to the graveyard for obvious reasons. Although I guess by this time in our city's life cycle, the bubonic plague has long since passed. So maybe just like one more small shop in this corner here. And then totally want a tourist parking lot outside the city gate, if they're coming from the King's Road and not the ferry. Now, speaking of, like I said, this looks horrible, so let's finally pave over the King's Road, and that'll add some parking to it as well. How much is this? Oh, it's the same price, so let's get the one with trees. 10 times better, although this is also a little wonky. Since we have our emergency vehicles on this, let's pave this as well, but just with a basic alleyway before it turns back into a dirt road. And what is going on there? That is a lot steeper than I thought it would be. Here, let's move this up to the other side of the graveyard, which is a little flatter. And then eventually we can get like a walkway down here, or maybe we'll add sidewalks there. Now, for the road going into Queen's Landing, I think I've made a narrow pedestrian road with Road Builder. If I go to Pathways. Yes, shoulderless pedestrian road. So this is basically this pedestrian road, but I've removed the shoulders and the median to make it a little more narrow so it can actually squeeze through the gate there. So let's replace this all the way up to the front gate. I mean, that transition is still a little weird, but at least people are walking down the center of the lane now, which is exactly what I wanted. This looks like Disney World or something like that, people entering a big tourist attraction, which we can say it kind of is. We can say that this is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But inside Queen's Landing, we still have these gravel roads, so cars are in the middle, and pedestrians are on the sides, and I kind of want to flip that. So let's do the same thing we did over in Aethelburg, where we do the small pedestrian road one way, and then we can just convert all these roads to that. Okay, some of these roads look pretty wonky. Like this is basically a cul-de-sac, so this had to be bi-directional, and then obviously we got gaps in there, but we're about to cover all this up with a nice new surface pack from someone named Rizara. It's this old Cities surface pack. This one, number one, in particular, I think is great because it kind of matches the color palette of our walls here. And then if we do an example, what I really love is that the tile work is pretty big, so you can see it from far away. And yeah, that looks incredible, I think. So I'm gonna spread this all throughout the alleyways here. And already that just makes a world of difference, though I don't think the roundabout should be on the top there. Now, if you're thinking the church plaza is a little bare bones, the same modder, Rizara, also has some plaza decals we can use. So I'm gonna go to our decals tool. Yeah, ground decals, scroll down, and it's all of these right here, which are incredibly intricate, also incredibly huge, most of them at least. This one is a little smaller, and we can kind of squeeze it in this block right here, I think. And you know what, I'm not going to do a fountain in the center there because I feel like I always do fountains everywhere. But with that, I think we are ready to detail. So didn't cover everything with surfaces because obviously we need a lot more green space, a lot more trees in between the buildings and the walls inside these courtyards here. And then we should probably plop down some actual, in-game parks just to increase the attractiveness of Queen's Landing to the citizens here. But then we'll do some terrain fixes, fix whatever's going on with that wall there. We might have to make some custom staircases to bridge those gaps there. But speaking of the wall, there's one more prop I'm gonna place along the entire length here. It's a sub prop of the church. And if you go to find it and look for windows to close to, this to me kind of looks like an arrow slit if you stretch your imagination, which is good for defense, I guess. So we're gonna get these all along the wall, which will help with the kind of variety because right now it just looks a little plain. But then obviously we'll get a bunch of restaurant props and cafe props all along the alleyways here, make it feel a little more active, do some terrain fixes, cover this with a dirt path. Might actually do a dirt path along the entire perimeter here. I totally forgot about this space, maybe some kind of barracks or whatever, and then some tree lines by the farms. But yeah, that is the idea. So with that, let's get to detailing. Okay, welcome back everyone to a now fully fleshed out medieval town. I am so happy with how this turned out, so let's do a quick recap before heading to some community feedback. Starting with this bridge, which I did replace. The previous two assets spliced together. It looked a little weird, and they actually didn't fill the entire gap here, so ended up going with 3 sections, a little more basic, and used this brick wall to create a ramp, since, stairs are not a thing in this game. And then ended up using this tower window as both a door and a window here. I said I was going to use this windows closed too closed, or too fast, too furious, windows too closed to, but you can see there are some rocks on the bottom that make it seem like it should be attached to the ground, and it felt a little too ornate. So yeah, end up with this window, which I think is still great, even though I started to question my life choices as I lined the entire perimeter in both the outer and the inner wall with these arrow slits, but I think it was worth it in the end. Then got some dirt net lanes along the entrance road here, all the way out to the roundabout, and up to here, a little horse stable, slash barracks, I guess, but I used the horse spawner to get actual horses in there, fenced them in. I guess this is like where the stable master lives, and got some hay, some barrels, whatever that thing is, but thought that was a nice touch, and it's cool to see some animal activity in there. And then same for over here, just got a little path leading to what I guess is like a little sewer underneath there from the main entrance there. And then halfway through detailing, I got a comment on the last episode, the train yard, from Maddie Bunte, I believe, who said I should have a clock tower kind of in the entrance square like in Zug, Switzerland. And this is now my favorite thing in the entire city. This is the tram pole, and then clocks from the Fragonard Church asset on all sides here, topped with some nice flowers. And you can see that this actually is functional, like the hands are moving, and it corresponds with the actual time here. And if we go down to ground level outside the gate, like follow these people, that is just the coolest view I've ever seen. So that was a great suggestion. I'm so happy with how this turned out. Beyond that though, got a bunch of restaurant props, some seating areas, a little fountain. I know I said I wasn't gonna do a fountain, but I did a fountain. And then some umbrellas for shade all along here. Same over by the church plaza, which are kind of spruced up. Got a stage prop here, which I thought made sense since that's a stage. And then some actual park assets here on top of grass, and some more eating areas, some nice planter boxes to kind of box in the plaza there. And then I started with a custom park over here, but thought it looked a little weird, so I ended up with this pocket park next to yet another pocket park. And then got this defensive moat, which looks way too pretty to be effective. But my idea was that there's like a natural spring here that trickles out into the waterfall, goes through these sewer grates under the bridge here. And the static ploppable asset brings up the ground here, so I couldn't have surfaces along the edge here. But I guess maybe it just goes underground there a little bit in like a sewer. So it's topped with this wooden leisure pier for making its way down out into the water. And I guess they never saw the Battle of Helm's Deep, because that is totally a vulnerable point. But I mean, it looks pretty. And then of course a bunch of trees along the walls here inside the courtyards, just to increase some green space over here as well, just so the Lord and Lady have a nice park to go to. But then on the outside, obviously got some tree lines all throughout the farms here, added some zoning next to our emergency vehicles since they felt a little out of place there, and then did these like Pelennor Field type paths all along the perimeter here. Again, it feels more like a tourist attraction now, so definitely want people to tour the outside of the wall there. So finally, let's wrap things up with some community feedback on last episode's train yard. Starting with Gamerhood Builds and Anonymous Person 1726, who said, A, I should not have locomotives on the classification bowls, and B, I was using the electrified cargo engine, which if we look at it and find it, this guy right here, I thought this was like some kind of cargo train that held cargo. Really, this is just an electric locomotive, and there are the moose packs again. But yeah, so I thought this held cargo, it didn't push cargo. Didn't make sense to have that on the yard itself. So no more locomotives on the classification bowls. They're kind of stored over here, and then one more yard over there. Next up, Urban Odyssey and a few other folks recommended using Tygon's Incredible Rail Pack to greater effect. So I did 2 things. First, I used the small oil depot over here. This thing is functional. We'll see trucks coming and going. And this part of the track now has a stop. So once the train comes, it'll stop there, load up, and be on its merry way. So this thing will look a little more active. And then I added 2 more additional tracks to get 2 more trains. The first one, it's kind of hard to tell, but this is now part of the small depot there. So we'll see a train coming there. and then over here in Depotville. Actually, there's the train itself. So added one more extension here since we had a few, as you saw earlier in the video, a few missing trains. And then finally, the big one, the name of our train yard. Got a lot of good suggestions, but I'm going to go with one of the earlier ones, and I saw this twice from William Haslak and Simon Huber 514, who suggested naming it Industry Park Aethelburg Kempten, which apparently is a very German way to name something like this, and then the surrounding district can just be Kempten later down the line. For the port, I saw Aethelport, which I thought would be really cool, so I'm going to keep that in my back pocket. But for now, let's just rename the train yard. Now before we head out, I realized I'd expanded Queen's Landing to encompass the farms, but remember, this has the no heavy traffic policy, and I definitely don't want to apply that to these businesses here. So ended up retracting Queen's Landing to its original size and made a new district for the farms, of course called Pelennor Fields. So hopefully those businesses are happy now. But with that, I think we're ready to head out. So as always, if you have any suggestions or ideas, leave a comment, or better yet, join the Discord and leave your idea in the City Suggestions channel so people can vote on it, and it'll bubble up, and who knows, maybe it'll end up in Aethelburg. And again, thank you to Trim, the person who set all that up. They are amazing. Go join, say hi, give them a wave. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.